My name is Ben Fagan. I am a 20-year-old student currently attending Western Washington University. Both my father and mother are American immigrants who raised me and my older sisters in a middle-class household in a suburb of Tacoma. I am a member of the 99% as defined by the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement began September 17, 2011. It called for people to camp in Zuccotti Park, located in the Wall Street district of New York. The park has now been emptied of occupiers. I remember seeing the flyer that sparked the Occupy movement. At the time, I brushed it off as just another thing on the internet, not knowing exactly what the movement was about. But now I can no longer avoid the images, and I'd like to share my thoughts on some of them. As with any protest, there are signs and images declaring the frustrations of the masses. Some ask questions, others make statements, some are poignant, while some aren't helpful at all. On first viewing of this sign, I found it to be degrading, in the sense that I considered myself to be a bit more active in my attention towards government and corporations. Maybe it's the generalization that we were all asleep that bothers me. It seems to alleviate the responsibility of citizens to pay attention to what their government is doing. I don't think we were asleep. I believe we got caught up in a daydream. I do think we have finally woken up, much in the way you wake up when you finally notice that the car in front of you on the highway has stopped and you're still traveling at 60 miles per hour. Right now we're pressing on the brakes, but it's hard to tell if we're slowing down. I find this statement to be true. With the presence of lobbyists in Congress and how much money gets spent during campaigns for elections and re-elections, I'm not naive to believe that money from corporations aren't influencing political ideas. But the blame here seems to be placed only on Wall Street and big corporations, and I find it troubling that we're not addressing that our representatives need to be held accountable as well. Wall Street is half the problem, our nation's politicians are the other half. They're the ones who take the money. They allow it to infect their decisions. How is it that the American voice isn't allowed to infect their thoughts? I'm not quite sure if I understand the use of this mask. Sure, it makes you, the protester, anonymous, and that it attempts to unite you all under one image, albeit an image associated with a failed revolution and a fictional one. But why would a movement need to unite under one image when the Occupy movement denies the necessity of having a universal list of demands? Even though it comes from a graphic novel penned by Alan Moore, it seems a little ironic to use an image that was popularized and is copyrighted by a big corporation. This is Dorley Rainey, an 84-year-old woman who was pepper sprayed by Seattle police during an Occupy Seattle protest that blocked a busy street. The details of when and why her and other protesters were sprayed is a bit muddled. There are some reports that Dorley complied with the Seattle PD and was on the sidewalk when they sprayed her and other protesters. Others exclude this detail. I do have an emotional reaction to this image, but I feel the necessity to repress it and control it. Violent images provoke violent reactions, and it's too easy to fall into that line of thought. Instead, I find that the words "this picture is worth" comprise more questions than answers, just as much as these images. In the multimedia age, the most striking images of the movement have come from the handheld cameras of its participants. Even though they are video, these do not show us enough of what happened. The man standing in front of the line of police is Kayvon Sabehi, a veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Kayvon was hospitalized for a ruptured spleen after police officers beat and arrested him. Kayvon claims to have been leaving the area that police were trying to clear out. But the video of his actions reveals something slightly different. If you're trying to leave, why would you purposefully stand in the way of a police line? That question doesn't justify the actions of the police officer who initiates the force. Kayvon is clearly in an inferior position and continues to back away from the officer as he advances. Yet, the officer begins to swing away at Kayvon into a group of other officers who proceed to arrest him. What's missing is what happens before the eyewitness hits record. Something initiated the recording of this incident. Does Kayvon peacefully ask where he should go, as he claims to have? Or does he do something more aggressive that may have provoked the violence? This incident is one of the most problematic images that have been recorded. Like the previous video, the videos filmed of this incident do not tell the whole story. In a YouTube video that has garnered more than 2 million hits, the recording begins just before the officer pepper sprays the students at point-blank range. It appears that they are peacefully protesting with a sit-in and have defied police requests to move. But the act of not moving doesn't justify the officer's actions to mace the students. However, a video that begins about a minute before the spraying shows that a group of officers have been surrounded by the students. That action is a provocation by the students for the police to forcibly move them. But something interesting happens. The officer who initiates the pepper spray steps out of the circle without being touched. It appears that the students weren't going to physically force the officers to stay within their circle, especially not officers who are equipped with paintball guns, batons, and riot gear. So why does he decide to mace the students? Why not just lead by example and have the other officers step out of the circle one by one? Why was the choice of violent and harmful action the more convenient one to make? When does defying police requests justify violence towards otherwise law-abiding citizens? There is always the possibility of provocation, but is non-violent provocation enough reason to justify violent action? The movement, in my eyes, is an exercise in the freedom of speech. But what defines free speech? Is it limited to only the written and spoken word? Where does physical action fit into the definition of free speech? I find that this video has made some slight attempt at answers, but the images have compelled me to ask more questions than give answers.